Welcome, welcome, welcome to this Lesbian Visibility Week final closing panel. It is my absolute pleasure to be with you this afternoon with two incredible people in the world, but incredible people that have been involved in this year's Lesbian Visibility Week. We've got Linda Riley here, publisher of Diva magazine, and of course, Nancy Kelly, who is the CEO of Stonewall. How are you both doing today?
Great. Sleepy but great.
Fantastic, fantastic. My name is Liz. I should probably say that. My name is Liz Ward. I'm director of programs at Stonewall, Europe's biggest LGBTQ plus human rights organisation. I am also sleepy but great after a phenomenal, a fantastic, and empowering week of celebrating lesbian, queer, women living the women identities across the whole of this week. And so it's really beautiful to be able to be here and bring it all together with two people that have been incredibly influential in creating it. So Linda, I'm going to come to you first. You know, Lesbian Visibility Week, it feels very much it is your baby or the baby of Diva. And certainly we've seen it grow over the years and become this wonderful, fantastic celebration of love, of identity, of people. And it's a real pleasure to be a part of it. But for you, what's been your highlight of the week so far, would you say?
Well, there has been quite a few highlights, I have to admit. I mean, one of them was standing on the stage with Nancy Kelly with our white, flashy white shoes. But I think another one and a really great moment was the opening, the launch of Lesbian Visibility Week at the London Stock Exchange. That was a great moment to be able to close the stock exchange on behalf of Lesbian Visibility Week, and indeed see Sunita there changing the words to her hit song to "She's So Macho." I mean, it was just a fantastic, joyous moment, and I don't think the London Stock Exchange has ever seen so many lesbians there at one time. That was a great moment.
Truly agree. I was also there, and in true sporty lesbian fashion, as I often talk about, told my entire football team about it on Wednesday, and they just thought it was the most fantastic thing, just so surreal, but so wonderful. Nancy, what about yourself? What's been your highlight of the week so far?
Uh, Obviously showing off my new white trainers with Linda. We've been wearing all week without arranging it. We've been wearing the lesbian uniform of smart black jeans and fresh white shoes, which I love. We we were able with Diva and the fantastic LOL word to have just the most amazing comedy night, which, as well as being just incredibly funny, and everyone should go and see LOL word act whenever they can. It was just the best audience. It was like, queer women and non-binary people from all different generations, from different backgrounds, kind of really, there were a lot of disabled women there, a lot of women of color, and it was just so incredible and kind of uplifting to be in such a kind of big, diverse group of lesbians, queer women, non-binary people, just laughing. It was like a really, just being there was really powerful for me. So that was probably the highlight for me, I think.
That's so beautiful. I think that so often our existence and our identities feels very heavy. It feels really difficult, right? We need to go on the internet or look to the news. And in moments like this, joy and laughter, like you just said, it can be subversive almost. It can be radical. It can be life-giving and life-affirming. And yeah, I think comedians are worth their weight in gold, and I think they're fantastic, especially when they're doing events such like that. Um, this week has been also quite a tough week, as it is every week often for our communities when we look to the news and we look at the world around us. But what's been a surprising thing that you've learned this week from submerging yourself in the week of lesbian visibility? Linda, I'll come to you next. What's been surprising for you?
Yeah, I think what's been really surprising. I mean, it's been a great week for Lesbian Visibility Week. It's been the biggest week, the third event of its kind, it's really taken off. But I think for me, and it shouldn't be so surprising, is the amount of ally support that we've had on this, and not just from straight allies, but from allies throughout the LGBTQI community. That has just been wonderful to see, because I think in the first year there was this kind of thing from allies. Should we support, etc.? They didn't really know how to handle it now, but now I think more people, networks are all celebrating it. So that's been the surprising thing, the amount of ally support. But it shouldn't be a surprise. Next year, I'm going to expect it.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, we're only as strong as we are together, right? So we need everyone to be part of the conversation, to be driving this forward, to be celebrating us, to be speaking up for us in rooms when we're not there. I always think about allyship, like that's when it really matters, right? In the rooms when community members aren't even there. But Nancy, for you, what's been a surprising thing that you've learned this week, would you say?
So there's been a lot of kind of remembering why Lesbian Visibility Week is needed. And it's kind of taken the particular form of me realizing that there are things I know that I take for granted other LGBTQ plus people know, and particularly other lesbians and queer women, that they don't know because they're not from my generation. And likewise, me realizing there's a ton of things that I don't know that lesbians, queer women, non-binary people from kind of other generations, from other parts of the world, things I've got to learn. And it just really, it shouldn't surprise me, but it does when you just stop and think, actually, lesbian histories, lesbian experiences, lesbian activism has never really had the kind of platform it deserves. And of course, that's what Lesbian Visibility Week is all about. But there's almost something shocking about that every time you engage with it. So I really, it sounds really silly, but as you know, Liz, I spent last night on the Stonewall Senior Leadership Team WhatsApp educating everybody about Joan Alma trading. and it would never have occurred to me that there were, LGBTQ plus people and particularly lesbians, queer women, etc., that didn't know about Joan Alma trading. And so it's been a week full of that, full of me realizing, actually, I think of this as absolutely part of my, I guess, kind of emotional and spiritual and mental map of what it means to be a lesbian, but it's not on yours. And here's this thing that's absolutely part of your history, your understanding of what it means to be a lesbian or a queer woman, that I don't know about. So it's a bittersweet thing. It's like great to do the learning, but it's a reminder of how much our kind of histories and our contributions and our talents do get kind of airbrushed out, I guess.
Yeah, completely. I guess that's leading me to another question that's come up in my mind, and I'll bring this to you, Linda. These weeks when we get to, I mean, I guess maybe working at a DV, you get to talk about being a lesbian all the time. But in weeks especially like this, where we're focused on lesbian visibility, does it ever lead you to this place of soul searching, maybe about your own self and your own journey and the people around you?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I often, as Nancy just said, I mean, one thing I do think back on is, how it was for lesbians when I first came out. I mean, I first came out in the late 70s. I hate to say that, but it's true. It was such a different world. I mean, there were very, very few lesbians around. There were very few lesbian role models around as well. I think probably the one person that springs to mind in around 77, I'm not even sure if she was out then, is Martina Navratilo, because obviously everybody knew she was a lesbian before she came out. I'm just saying that fact. But basically, there was very small. There weren't enough lesbians around, and there was no internet when I came out. There was nobody to reach out to really. If you wanted to talk, you'd have to go into a phone box and look for all these stickers in a public phone box. Some of you might not even know what a public phone box is, but you would have to look through stickers and maybe find a lesbian line sticker to call up to reach out for help. So the world has changed for the positive since then. So I often talk about the positive things that are happening, the positive things for change, rather than focusing too much. Obviously, there is a lot of negativity, but the fact is we have come forward. I would never have thought I could have children, and get married when I came out. In fact, one of the things my mum said to me when she kicked me out is like, apart from being a disgrace to the family, was that I'll never get married, I'll never have kids. And, nobody could look forward at that time and see that is a possibility for the future. So things have changed for the positive.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that personal side as well there, Linda. And it's so true that we sometimes get caught up with how much we've got left to go, that we forget about how far we've come. And Nancy and I got to have a little sit down with Amazon Liti, who's a great kind of activist and speaker and facilitator, and we were talking about the invisible nature of many of our communities who are lesbians, who have had to use these guerrilla or like underground forms of communication, like stickers and phone boxes, to be seen and to thrive as a community. And I guess maybe coming to you, Nancy, what do you see? What's your reflection on the journey of that since maybe the 80s or 90s, when people have had to find alternative ways of communication in a time where we're so over communicating and social media is so visible and feel so visible now? What's your reflection on that journey?
I love the way that you're kind of hedging your bets about what decades might be relevant to me there, Liz. Linda noticed it as well. That's super funny.
I was going to butt in there, but I thought stay out of this.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm a millennial. I guess what I kind of reflect on, really, and kind of picking up that conversation that you're talking about, that we were in with Amazon, that was really about the invisibility of East Asian LGBTQ plus people and East Asian lesbians and bi women, right? There's something for me about, in some ways, things are really different. So Linda is describing kind of a reality that I recognize. When I didn't come out till I was in my 20s. When I was a kid, I mean, I was getting in fights for being a lesa for years before I even considered the possibility that I might actually be this thing called a lesbian, right? But despite all of that kind of communication, over communication, we still really struggle to kind of create the right kind of networks, both in terms of them being inclusive and in terms of creating space for parts of the lesbian, bisexual, women's community that have always been pushed to the margin. So actually, there have been times in the past when there was almost more organisation of East Asian LGBTQ plus people. That's the kind of conversation we were having. And I think there's this sort of assumption that the internet solves everything, and I'm not sure that it does. And I guess one of the big things for me about that is I've been reflecting a lot this week also about the identity of lesbian, right? Distinctively the identity of lesbian. And how in my lifetime, it's not ever really occupied the kind of space of an identity that people are drawn to. I've listened to so many women this week talking about how they kind of identified as a gay woman for years, and lesbian felt like a sort of space they couldn't sit in, but also women saying they identified as queer women for years, and lesbian feeling like a space they can't sit in, and kind of coming to a point in their lives where lesbian felt like a great place for them to be and live their lives. And so I've been really reflecting about kind of lesbophobia specifically, like what drives that, right? What drives this sort of difficulty across generations of just owning that identity as a really positive identity that we're drawn towards, which is it's absolutely, I'm assuming, why Linda wanted to found Lesbian Visibility Week, is about kind of creating a space for celebration and seeing this as a kind of an identity that we can embrace. I guess I think it's so striking to me that I can remember my own internalized lesbophobia in my 20s, making me say, I caught myself. I remember one day walking home saying to a friend, I'm not that kind of lesbian. And I feel like young women are still saying, I'm not that kind of lesbian, like maybe for different reasons, but there's this sort of consistent slight discomfort. And I think that's about lesbophobia, and I think that's about misogyny and those things being internalized in us. So that was a bit of a long answer, but these are all the things that have been kind of percolating in my brain and in my heart over the last week, thinking about those kinds of generational changes, that some things have changed, some things feel like they haven't.
Yeah, thank you so much. Almost like it feels like it's almost hiding in plain sight now because it's so visible and we're talking about it all the time. And actually, you're exactly right. The misogyny that is baked into society, the trans misogyny that's baked into society, all of that, still finds an outlet and still finds a way to make itself known, which is really, really sad. Linda, you've been such a powerful voice and at the forefront of these issues for years and years and years, and you've obviously seen the changes and created much of that change yourself, which is phenomenal. We're entirely indebted to you in our community. But I'm gonna ask for a little bit of blue sky thinking now. I am a millennial after all. But if you were to imagine where we could be maybe in the next 15 years, right? Where do you see the future of Lesbian Visibility Week? Where do you see the future of our community? Where do you see us in 15 years' time?
Well, in 15 years' time, I see ourselves as perhaps not needing Lesbian Visibility Week, and lesbians just feeling that they've got such a great space they don't need it. I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but we'll have to see. But I mean, ideally, right now we have to really shout loud and proud about being lesbians and really fight for our space, and hopefully there'll be a time then we don't need that. If that was my ideal way of thinking, that's the way I'd look at it.
I love that, and I'm gonna flip the same question to you, Nancy. 15 years time, where do you see us going?
So, I mean, Linda's right. It would be great. It would be great to be in a world where we saw lesbians, bi women, queer women in every part of public life, where being out and proud was, as natural as breathing for everybody, including our allies, that it was just, an absolute kind of accepted, celebrated part of who we are as a society. So I really kind of hope for that. And I'll not give you my really big long wish list of all of the other things that I wish are different in 15 years time. But, and I also kind of wish, picking up the point I just made, that the kind of inclusive, passionate, thoughtful, joyful community we've seen this week of all kinds of lesbians, bi women, queer women, being together, loving together, spending time together. I wish that was, I hope that'll be the norm wherever we are, right?
Yeah, that's what we want to dream for. That's what we want to dream for. And then finally, as we're rolling into the last few minutes of this wonderful Lesbian Visibility Week, if you would want the world to take away one thing from this year's Lesbian Visibility Week, what would it be? What is the one thing you want people to take away? Linda, I'm going to come to you first.
Oh, if I really had to sum it, I mean, there's lots of things I'd like them to take away, but the one thing that I would say is, stop stereotyping lesbians. That would be my one thing, because we are so stereotyped, and that's something that I hope people are seeing when they see Lesbian Visibility Week. The fact that we shouldn't be stereotyped. I'm not going to go into what the stereotypes are. I think we all know, but that's what I'd like.
Gorgeous. Thank you, Linda. And to you, Nancy, what's one thing that people should take away from this year's Lesbian Visibility Week?
Just that we're complete badasses, right? We're funny, we're smart, we're interesting, we're creative. you know, we don't conform to the kind of narrow view that people have of us. We're this incredible community, and if your company or your creative endeavor or your community isn't including us, then you're really losing out.
Yeah. 100%, 100%. Thank you both so much, and thank you to everyone watching at home. Thank you for this wonderful Lesbian Visibility Week 2022. I always say that a day without lesbians is like a day without sunshine. So more lesbians, more sunshine in the world, if you ask me. I've been Liz, we've been Stonewall, we have been Diva. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.